When we were all young, Doris was one of the bright stars of the Otago, the Dunedin Art School, which King Edward Polytech there. And I was one of the bright stars here, and there was one in Auckland. And we vaguely kept in touch, because in those days student work would be collected, perhaps 20 pieces, and sent from one art school to another to be exhibited as one of these jolly good ideas of seeing how the other chap's doing. And Doris's stuff always attracted me as a student, and I understand she was quite taken with my stuff. we were much of an age, there's only 10 months between us. And eventually she moved, during the war, I went to Dunedin, and I was in camp there for a spell while we were camouflaging the guns at Tairoa Head. And I went up to the art school, of course, and I met Doris and her tutors, Field and there were two other chaps, I'll think of their names in a moment. And went to the artist studios, met Colin McCann and Anne Hamlet. They hadn't married at that stage. And we got to know each other and each other's work quite well, and we kept in touch quite a bit. Then Doris eventually married Dermot Holland of Christchurch and settled here. And she became very much part of the scene here. Her outlook, as I mentioned perhaps a little earlier, was equivalent to our outlook. She had gone sketching up central Otago quite a lot. That bleak, bare, wonderfully sparse area, which accounts, I imagine, for the sparseness of the paint in our landscapes. Large areas of very little, not pretty little views. And so she fitted into what we were doing here splendidly. And I've been out sketching with Doris several times over the years. She's an excellent person to go with, because she never spoke a word. She was concerned with her own mental imagery, evolving it from what was there, what we were passing through, or what we'd established as our meeting point. And I was involved in my own affairs. And when we got to our destination, she'd vanish. You'd see her 4 or 5 hours later coming out of a gully with a majestic painting. It was quite something, and quite an individual statement, although in its crispness and clarity, it belonged to essentially the same outlook as Rita and Rata and Leo and myself and Colin, of course. Olivia Spencer Bowen never entered into the thing. She was always an individual, and so was Toss Wollaston. They were painters in their own right, and they had little influence on the rest of us. But Doris's work, with its wonderful command of line and proportion and relationships of the areas, always commanded my attention. I remember one she did of a series of buildings on a hillside. I think it was quarry buildings. And it was hard to say whether the buildings were imposed on the hillside or the hillside encroached on the buildings, because the areas were so beautifully interlocked. They were of equal importance. And that struck me as being a wonderful solution for what I'd been after for a long time, a totally evolved painting, rather than a picture of something. A lot of painting is merely a picture of something, instead of being a resolved problem. And Doris could resolve superbly in her work there.